It is Tuesday, the 12th of July, the year 2022. Later on Kenya Decides Tonight, my colleague JJ Kioria, alongside his guests, will be having a conversation around the level of preparedness of IEBC. On his panel tonight, we have Mule Musau, National Coordinator of the Premier Election Monitoring Group right here in Kenya, ELOG. And we also have on that panel Francis Wanderi, a commissioner at the IEBC. Is it all systems go for IEBC? Will they deliver a free, fair and credible election? We will be listening to all that. Plus, also from a political party standpoint, we have representation from the Agano Party, and that is Jane Muthoga, organizing secretary. All that coming up at the tail end of this live broadcast. But first things first, let's take a look at the stories that made headlines, starting off with our top stories. Good evening. My name is Tom Boya. President Uhuru Kenyatta defends the ongoing issuance of title deeds as government plans to resolve land ownership concerns.
But the assurance that this network will always be available at our tallying center, 290 plus 47 county tallying centers will have network connectivity, and therefore the presiding officer last resort can be to transmit from those areas.
The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission maintains it will use electric voter verification. Plus, special sittings of the National Assembly that were to take place Wednesday are now cancelled. Highs of 13 degrees Celsius right here in Nairobi, Kenya. A cold night, but we want to warmly welcome you to this live broadcast. Our sign language interpreter tonight, Lensa Odingo. Our socials at KBC Channel 1. My Twitter handle at Tomboya24. Hashtag Prime Edition. Our top story. President Uhuru Kenyatta has defended the ongoing issuance of title deeds, saying that government has worked so hard to ensure Kenyans own their parcels of land. Speaking in Ruai in Embakasi East constituency, President Kenyatta said that the government will relentlessly wrestle illegally acquired parcels of land from the grip of cartels. Irene Muchuma opens our coverage with that report tonight.
One is informal. Umoja tu inako Daniel Muli.
Tunaendelea na sasa, najua tunakaribia kumaliza hiyo shida na kuhakikisha ya kwamba Wakenya wenzetu wa hapa Nairobi wameweza kupata vyeti vyao, na mtu aweze kulala kwake nyumbani akijua ya kwamba asubuhi ya kesho hakuna mtu anaweza kuja mubomolee nyumba yake, hakuna mtu anaweza kuja aseme ni kwake. Wananchi ambao wamepewa hizo title, wengi vile tumesikia leo, wamegojea zaidi, wengine ya miaka 40, wengine hata karibu miaka 50 kutoka wakati walipewa mashamba. Na tusisemi walipewa kwa sababu walinunua.
Wengine ni wa mdomo na matusi. Sasa mimi nauliza, ukiwaona kila siku wakienda kwa mkutano, kazi yao ni kuongea juu ya uhuru. Sasa wewe unaongea juu uhuru, atafuti kula ama ni namna gani? Ati wananiambia nimalize niende. Kwani wananiambia nimalize niende wapi? Nitakuwa hapa.
Tumefanya kazi. Hii Nairobi tumepata boreholes. Hii Nairobi tumepata mahospitali. Hii Nairobi tumepata mabarabara.
Na mimi sioni kama wewe unaenda. Wewe, mimi kama ningeulizwa, kama ni mimi naulizwa, ningesema Your Excellency, haki ya Mungu, utatuacha namna gani ukienda?
The long wait is finally over for a section of city residents. The unveiling of 2 more health centers and issuance of title deeds will see them make moves towards development and improved livelihoods. Irene Mchuma Udim, Channel 1 in the county of Nairobi.
Well, that report there having a little hiccup. President Uhuru Kenyatta speaking in Ruai Embakasi East constituency, defending the ongoing issuance of title deeds, 6,000 of them issued in Embakasi, and saying that the government will relentlessly wrestle legal acquired parcels of land that happens to be in the grips of the land cartels. Let's move on now. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission has ruled out any chances of using the manual voter register in the August 9th poll. IEBC says that technology that will be deployed during the election day is elaborate and chances of failure are minimal. IEBC Chief Executive Officer Marjan Hussain says that adequate measures have been put in place to guarantee the efficiency of the technology. The IEBC Chief Executive Officer gave the assurance as the Commission concluded a 2-day national election conference convened to assess the general election preparedness. Kamche Medza puts that story into perspective.
Concerns on the efficiency and reliability of technology in the August 9th general election was the center of focus on the second and final day of the National Election Conference.
Must the transmission be done exactly at the polling center? Or could it be transmitted from 20 meters away or 20 kilometers away? And I'm saying this in the context that in case of technology failure,
And IEBC is interacting with third parties like political parties will have access to the voter register. Does IEBC have a mechanism to sort of moderate political parties when they get a copy of the voter register?
The Commission saying it has engaged various mobile network operators for robust connectivity.
A network that can be able to allow us to perform our duty in as far as results transmission is concerned, because this is one of the most contentious issues. Guaranteeing us there's going to be 3G and 4G network throughout the election period.
IEBC says it is not foreseeing any failures with regards to the system, as lessons have been drawn from the challenges of the 2017 general election.
But in case that technology failed completely, it can neither do biometric identification or to do the alphanumeric search using the ID or passport. Then we can conclude and say that specific kit is not working, and therefore we can now use the backup kits.
I know the last 3 weeks normally to elections get a bit tough, but keep to the code of conduct. If you don't do so, there are consequences.
The National Police Service is ready, fully prepared to support IEBC and to see the election through peacefully.
IEBC on Tuesday also flagged off voter education caravans to various counties to enhance civic education. Kamche Menza for Prime Edition.
Just a reminder that at the tail end of this live broadcast on Kenya Decides, my colleague JJ Kioria engages a panelist on the topic of discussion tonight is the level of preparedness of IEBC 29 days into the general poll. Let's move straight into the corridors of justice. The High Court has dismissed a petition by Dennis Gaku challenging the credibility of Johnson Sakaja's academic credentials in his bid for the Nairobi gubernatorial seat. In a judgment by Justice Anthony Murima, the court found that the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission does not have the mandate to verify academic documents nor summon witnesses, therefore upholding the decision of the Dispute Resolution Committee to clear Sakaja to vie for the Nairobi's top seat. Zarafina Robi reports.
It is a win for Nairobi Senator Johnson Arthur Sakaja after the High Court in Milimani, Nairobi dismissed the petition filed by Dennis Gaku against the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission with cause and upheld the decision of the Dispute Resolution Committee to clear him to vie for the Nairobi gubernatorial position. Gaku had moved to court on grounds that Sakaja allegedly did not have authentic academic credentials from the University of Nairobi, nor Thames University in Uganda, and was dissatisfied with the decision of the IEBC to clear Sakaja on the 7th of June 2022, and the DRC going ahead to uphold the decision. In a judgment delivered by Justice Anthony Murima, virtually the court found that this was not proven beyond doubt, pointing out that the IEBC does not have the mandate to verify academic documents. Meanwhile, a city lawyer, Bernard Odero, has moved to court seeking to overturn the clearance of Roots Party leader Professor George Wajakoya to run for the presidency. In the petition, Odero argues that Professor Wajakoya is mentally unfit to hold office and should have been subjected to a mental assessment. The city lawyer further questions Professor Wajakoya's manifesto, which includes suspending the constitution and legalizing bang, among others. Finally, the IEBC has cleared UDA senatorial nominee Karungo Thangwa for the 9th of August polls. Karungo, whose name was missing in the IEBC's Kenya's Gazette notice published on the July 1st, was presented with a nomination certificate by Kiambu County Returning Officer Arnold Mutwiri at the Commission's county offices in Thika. Abdikhair Mohammed for Prime Edition.
Well, that story brings us to our first break right here on KBC Prime. When we come back, politics and a spike in the COVID numbers. Don't go away.
The development of Monday, the 6th of April 2009, where the chair of NARC Kenya, the Honorable Martha Karua, resigned her position, have made it difficult for me to continue to serve in the same government. I therefore wish to state today that I have written to His Excellency the President my letter of resignation, and I, effective from today, therefore, cease to be the Assistant Minister, Ministry of Medical Services.
Do you have a news story to share with KBC? Get in touch swiftly on email news@kbc.co.ke or call 0723-892-654 or 0734-780-124.
To get John chapter 11 as your skiza tune, dial star 811 star 965 hash.
I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. John chapter 11, verse 25.
To get John chapter 11, dial star 811 star 965 hash. To get John chapter 11, dial star 811 star 965 hash.
We shall legalize weed.
Professor George Luchiri Wajakoya of the Roots Party.
Semeni baba kea. Baba kea.
Raila Amolo Odinga of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Party.
Unajua mimi sina pesa ya serikali ama ya kashfa.
David Mwaure Wahiga of the Agano Party. And
hakuna kura ya hasla mtaiba.
William Samoei Ruto of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance. Presidential Debate 2022. Do not adjust your sets.
Welcome back to KBC Prime Edition. Our socials at KBC Channel 1. My Twitter handle at Tomboy24, #Prime Edition. Moving on, a section of the clergy drawn from Kiambu County has urged their counterparts to avoid taking sides in the ongoing political campaigns. They said that it is critical for spiritual leaders to remain apolitical, so as to provide unbiased counsel and direction during this electioneering period. Here's that report.
Speaking in Kiambu, the members of the clergy call for political tolerance ahead of the August polls.
And we are calling upon every citizen of this country to exercise caution and to preach peace.
They urge the electoral body IEBC to secure the process by building public confidence.
We are asking the chairman and his team, Chebukati, to take care and level the ground that there will be fairness, free and fair elections.
Elsewhere, Machakos Governor Alfred Mutua has called for transparency in the handling of elections.
Mimi nataka kumwambia Mheshimiwa Chebukati, chairman wa IEBC, wewe chapa kazi yako. Funga masikio, chapa kazi.
Meanwhile, a section of leaders from Nairobi County have thrown their weight behind Ronald Karauri in the race for the Kasarani parliamentary seat. The group spoke even as a section of ODM supporters in Nairobi County urged the party to ensure the fairness and inclusivity in the nomination of members to legislative assemblies.
We would like to bring to the attention of ODM leadership and management that the Omogusi nominees have been placed in positions that do not guarantee the intended purpose of ensuring that the Omogusi are represented in the Senate and County Assembly.
Now, Kenyans have been urged to elect leaders of integrity come the 9th next month. Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission EACC chairperson Archbishop Eliud Wabukala has said. He says the commission will continue stepping up its efforts in the fight against corruption in order to enhance transparency and also accountability. He made the remarks at the commemoration of the Africa Anti-Corruption Day. Frederick Mwoki is on that report.
Kenya joined other nations in the continent in commemorating the Africa Anti-Corruption Day. Led by EACC chairperson Archbishop Eliud Wabukala, the commission urged Kenyans to elect corruption-free leaders who will spearhead development agendas.
We are making a lot of progress, but we want to be supported by everybody, especially the Kenyans at the ballot paper, that if they can elect the right leaders now, our war on corruption will almost be half done.
His sentiments were echoed by Anglican Church of Kenya Bishop Jackson Ole Sapit, who said the fight against corruption needs concerted efforts from every citizen.
Corruption is also a matter of policy. We want to anchor it in policy. That's why we say we want leaders with integrity to be in that space where they are going to enact laws in Parliament, so that we have the right policies and the right laws to make sure that Chapter 6 of the Constitution is implementable.
The Africa Anti-Corruption Day is commemorated annually by the continent on July 11th. The day was designated by the African Union to invigorate the fight against corruption.
As Kenya joins other African nations in commemorating the Africa Anti-Corruption Day, Kenyans have been urged to elect leaders of integrity as the EACC steps up efforts of fighting corruption in the country. Reporting for Prime Edition from Nairobi, my name is Frederick.
Special sittings of the National Assembly that were to take place Wednesday, July 13th, tomorrow if you like, have been cancelled indefinitely. The cancellation follows failure of gazettement of the sessions and publication of the order paper at least 12 hours before the sitting. In a communique to the legislators, Speaker Justin Muturi said that government printer declined to gazette the special sitting despite being notified of the same in good time.
Members of the National Assembly were to reconvene for a special sitting a month after adjourning synodine to pave way for the general election. However, a statement by Speaker Justin Muturi advised members that the session will not be held. Muturi had, on the advice of the Leader of Majority, recalled members to deliberate and consider a number of issues left pending.
I've learned that tomorrow's special sitting for Parliament has been cancelled. And basically the reason behind it is that it was not gazetted or not gazetted in time. One explanation is that probably the gazette notice was supposed to be done yesterday and then it happened to be a public holiday. The other is that probably the paperwork did not get there in time. We are still trying to find out why, the actual reason as to why that special sitting was not gazetted.
They include the Huduma Bill, a report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the county government's additional allocation, and approval of the ratification of the agreement between Kenya and the United Kingdom on defense cooperation that saw members of Parliament last year threaten to shoot down the motion until British soldiers involved in the murder of Agnes Wanjiru in Nanyuki are brought to book, with consultations to determine if the House will be reconvened before the end of the current term of Parliament underway. The National Assembly Administration and National Security Departmental Committee on Tuesday met to discuss the Huduma Bill and adopted amendments to Chapter 5 of the draft law pertaining the immigration services. Immigration clauses that sought to integrate immigration into Huduma Card will now be expunged over fears that the move could threaten the security of Kenyans and passport holders.
Huduma Bill deals heavily with immigration, and it was trying to integrate immigration into the Huduma Card and the services that are given by immigration. But immigration, as they explain, is that most of the documents that they have require standalone department, as is the practice in most of the countries in the Commonwealth, and they feel like integrating it would actually erode the security features they have. People are fearful. We feel then it is at this time, a point in time, we can leave it out. And then there's more consultation, there's more research, and then thereafter if it's possible to integrate, we integrate if there are going to be benefits of that integration. But if there isn't, then we can leave it out. It has been there and it has been serving Kenyans, and I don't think there's any big issue about it.
Following the move, the immigration services now remain under the Executive and Citizens Immigration Act. For Prime Edition, I'm Gladys Mungai.
On to health matters now. Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe has reaffirmed the national government's commitment towards supporting county governments around their programs effectively. Kagwe noted that despite health being a devolved function, there is need for the two entities to work together to ensure members of the public access effective as well as efficient services. Nancy Okware was on the public health beat.
Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe made an impromptu visit at the Nyahururu County and Referral Hospital. It is here that Kagwe called for combined efforts between the two levels of government to improve provision of healthcare to the citizenry.
Health is a devolved function, and therefore we must work very closely with the county government in ensuring that health is properly taken care of within the county government administrations.
The Cabinet Secretary saying that money collected by hospitals and through the National Health Insurance Fund should ideally be kept in hospitals and not diverted to other functions.
We are also asking that the county government agrees on a check-off system for the KEMSA debts, so that at any time, if the county government owes KEMSA money is offset before the total amount allocated to counties is given.
Meanwhile, the government, in conjunction with the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority and the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, have flagged off a consignment of high nutrition food commodities to 4 drought-hit counties to mitigate malnutrition risk among children. The ready-to-use therapeutic food consignment, valued at 30 million shillings, is destined for the 4 counties of Turkana, Mandera, Wajir and Isiolo.
Persistent food insecurity has contributed to a dire and deteriorating nutrition situation, with about 942,500 children aged between 6 and 59 months urgently in need of therapeutic treatment for acute malnutrition.
Providing these foods has reversed stunted growth and development due to chronic lack of essential nutrients in diets of thousands of children in these areas.
These life-saving nutritional commodities complement the UK's support that we already give for cash payments to affected households through the World Bank and the National Drought Management Authority.
Nancy Okwari, Prime Edition.
Well, the ministry also says that Kenya's COVID-19 positivity rate has risen to 6% from Monday's 4.2% following the confirmation of 124 cases. The new cases were detected from 2,060 samples tested over the last 24 hours. MOH also confirms that there were no new COVID-19 related death cases recorded. Now, moving on, learners have begun reporting back to school, you may have noticed, for the second term, amid concerns over the rising cost of living. Parents who spoke to KBC Channel 1 saying that they have been forced to send their children back to school with incomplete inventories of educational as well as personal effects. Why? Hard economic times. Here's that report.
In Buruburu area of Nairobi County, we met Ruth Mora, a mother of 7, is on her daily business. Mora, just like other million parents across the country, says she's feeling the effect of the rising cost of living.
Avocado tulikuwa tunainunua kitambo 10 shillings. Sasa tunanunua 20 bob. Na ukileta hapa saa zingine watu wanakataa kununua. Juu iko bei kali.
Her children are among those going back to school. Mora says her children will be forced to report back to school minus some essential items due to lack of money.
Nikamchukulia bags 2, badala namchukulianga hata ina matano. Nilimchukulia 2. Wipes nikamchukulia 1. Vitu zingine kama panties plus sikununua. Nilisema tu wachaenda katumia hizo sasa mama. Colgate sikununua.
Her sentiments are shared by a number of parents who believe that the odds appear hugely stacked against them.
Tu kulingana na economy vile iko, shule inafunguliwa haraka, maisha imekuwa ngumu, lakini tunajaribu tu.
Sasa tunateseka sana. Juu hata mimi nikipeleka wangu niliombaomba pesa shilingi 200, 100 mpaka nikapata school pesa ya kutosha. Na hata saa hii sijamalizia school fees, sikupeleka chochote school fees.
But even as they decry of the rising cost of living, head teachers want the capitation fund increased from the current 22,244 to 30,000 Kenyan shillings per student to bridge a financial deficit. Mora says such demands by teachers pose dangers to students whose parents are struggling to make ends meet. It is back to school for millions of learners countrywide. Even as the wheels of learning continues to turn, a fragile economy has seen parents concerned on how or when they are going to clear school fees for their children. For Prime Edition, I'm Zainab Said.
All right. Now, Lieutenant General retired Lazarus Sumbeyo was the commander of the Kenya Army at a time when the military was going through great transformation. During his days as commander, he earned the name, or the nickname if you like, ZT, for his zero tolerance of corruption. Nisi Mano paid the retired, decorated general a visit at his Nairobi home. Here now is the Lieutenant General Sumbeyo's story in a weekly feature, Military Tales.
Born on the 1st of January 1958 in Machakos, Rogers Munene Mbithi joined the Kenya Air Force in May of 1978 as a flight cadet.
I happened to be somewhere in Machakos, so I said, okay, let me go and try. We're just looking for a job.
Shortly after, in the same year of joining the military, 2 planes went down at Oldonyo Sabuk, killing 5 Kenya Air Force pilots.
That urgent need to replace those 5 pilots. So we were taken to France for basic helicopter training.
Upon his return, Mbithi was commissioned in 1980 to fly the Puma helicopter.
And now when I came back, I had more workload in the squadron of converting people. And that is what I've been doing. So we were balancing between operational missions and training.
Mbithi rose through the ranks, becoming a lieutenant colonel and a commanding officer.
We just continued with normal duties, to instructing and doing operational missions.
In October of 1992, 100 miles into Somalia, he was captured and taken hostage by militia in Malda during a rescue mission.
One of our helicopters, when I was in the Air Force, was flying from Isiolo to Mandera. And somehow they did not get their navigation very well. So they strayed into Somalia, deep into Somalia. That is when we were given the task to go and pick that aircraft from Somalia.
Their plan to trace, start up, and lift off the plane in a quick takeoff was successful.
We said we just lift off at the same time and blow a lot of dust. They will not know what we are doing. But something happened. We could not take off because one of us was still outside. And we said if we leave this one here, we'll just be butchered. And when we get back to Nairobi, we just go straight for court martial. So what do we do?
Mbithi communicated to Nairobi on the inbuilt aircraft radio that they had been captured.
When we were surrounded, of course, I knew we are not leaving this place. And that is that. No more communication. There were no mobile phones, nothing.
When the dust settled around their plane, Mbithi and crew were surrounded by armed militia.
Some with the live grenade, others, of course, guns were ready. And we were ordered to shut down, get out of the aircraft on our knees. We were taken to a technical, these vehicles of theirs. And for 30 minutes, we were driven around that town in a very crazy manner. And then we were dumped in a very dark room someplace.
Hours later, a sigh of relief came after diplomatic intervention happened and the entire crew was released.
If we had spent the night there, maybe probably would not be there because the town was retaken back the same night. There was very serious fighting there. And the forces of Farai took over the town again.
Colonel retired Mbithi was also involved in the 2012 Baragoi rescue mission in Samburu County.
There was some police who were pursuing stolen livestock and they were ambushed. It was like a mayday call for us to go. So we just left Nairobi and went.
Here, stolen livestock was reported and later spotted, and police were in hot pursuit.
When we got to that valley, then is when the reality struck to us. So what we could see was just bodies littered, and we could identify those ones police, but those who died were about 31.
Colonel Rogers Mbithi was also involved in VIP flights, flying both former President Moi and President Kibaki.
It's a privilege you are given according to your performance. And so when you are given a tour, it's like a tour of duty to be the main presidential pilot.
In the year 2009, Mbithi resigned from the military, joining the police air wing.
What I've done so far, where I've come from and from those young years and what I am now, I'm happy.
Colonel Rogers Mbithi Munene has served in the Kenya Air Force for 31 years.
He has now served at the Kenya Police Air Wing for 13 years, a total of 44 years of faithful military duty. Reporting for KBC from Nairobi County, I'm Nisi Emmanuel.
Of course, that report was on Colonel Rogers Munene Mbithi and not Lieutenant General retired Lazarus Sumbeyo, as had earlier indicated. We apologize for that mix-up. Of course, Colonel Rogers there coming into the scene when 2 military planes crashed at Oldonyo Sabuk in 1978. 5 pilots who were on board were killed, and of course it meant that they had to recruit a new flight cadet, and 6 officers were picked for training in France to replace those pilots that had died. And that flight cadet would perfect his flying skills, as we saw in that report, and he became, of course, involved in the VIP flights, flying both President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi and later on Mwai Kibaki. Now, I am told again, this time correctly, that we are taking a break. Later on, Karo Njenga will be bringing in the day's business. And of course, after that, we have Richard Munga with the day's sports. And remember, it's Tuesday, so we have Kenya Decides coming at the tail end of this live broadcast. Stay with us.
Every day, over 15 million members are transforming Africa. Million members empowered to learn, to grow, to harvest, to lead, to dream. Equity. Karibu member.
Well, I trust that you're doing well this Tuesday evening. My name is Caroline Jenga, bringing you up to date with the latest in the world of business. Now, we kick off with geothermal, where Geothermal Development Company is piloting 5 prototypes that use geothermal steam for milk pasteurization, heat greenhouses, aquaponds, laundromat and drying of cereals. The company further says it's in talks with various companies planning to set up industrial parks in Menengai and Baringo Silale geothermal sites. GDC Managing Director Jared Othieno says the goal is to commercialize use of geothermal energy for direct use.
Kenya's installed geothermal capacity has been ranked 6th globally, following the completion of the 86 megawatts of Carrier 1 additional Unit 6 power plant set to be commissioned later this year. On average, the government targets to inject about 200 to 250 megawatts of geothermal annually with the help of the private sector investment in the renewable energy sector.
It's therefore very, very, very important. And for that matter, the government is really very keen, of course, through the parastatals that are within the energy sector, that is GDC, and of course, KenGen, to ensure that they are in partnership with the right people so that we actually end up really benefiting from this resource.
Though we have a long and successful geothermal development history as a country, geothermal resource potential in the country largely remains untapped, with less than 10% of the non-potential developed.
Speaking at the Geothermal Congress 2022, Geothermal Development Company says it has drilled over 50 wells in Menengai with 170 megawatts of steam at the wellheads. GDC says plans to generate 105 megawatts of green energy is on course, adding that one of the 3 independent power producers has begun construction of a 35 megawatt power plant, with commissioning expected in the first quarter of 2023.
Hoping that 105 megawatts should actually be able to be derived from there. And then, of course, with the discoveries in the journey area of Paka, in Baringo, where already 30 megawatts have already been tapped.
I think with this addition and the extra one, we should be able to reach the 1,000 megawatts as a country.
Injection of clean, renewable and environmental friendly energy sources would reduce carbon dioxide emissions as well as the cost of electricity. They called for enhancement of energy efficiency as one of the priority actions to mitigate climate change in the country.
And no longer ignore climate change. We are aware that there is an urgent need to make progress on climate change, and that the world has to do more than just talk about it.
Othieno appealed to investors to establish industrial parks in Menengai and Baringo Silala Geothermal project, as well as industries that touch on green hydrogen and green ammonia, broadening geothermal power.
Now, hotels, supermarkets and high-end grocery retail outlets are now required to state the sources of their groceries and other horticultural products as the Food and Agriculture Authority enforces the KS 1758 food standards. The newly gazetted safety standards crafted will now, by players rather, in the horticulture sector, seek to entrench traceability systems in the country's food system.
In 2021, the horticulture subsector generated 158 billion shillings in exports, as the sector recorded a 15% growth. To show up export activities in the sector, players crafted safety regulations that have been gazetted by the Food and Agriculture Authority. The law requires hotels, supermarkets and high-end retail outlets to state the source of their groceries in a bid to ensure farmers supplying foodstuff comply to the new standards.
We are encouraging everybody and every store, hotels, restaurants and all food dealers to now look for the KS 1758 mark even when they go to their food store.
Exporters will also be required to get additional KS 1758 certification before getting an export license in measures aimed at reducing checks and interceptions at the international market.
And we're asking Kenyans to basically demand for traceability and accountability for every produce that they now produce, because we have a standard. It's up to Kenyans now to buy safe produce that has been taken care of and accounted for without having to worry at all. We now have a standard in the country.
The newly gazetted safety standards also cover workers' rights and welfare in line with international best practices, as Kenya seeks to increase its food and safety standards ratings globally.
Now, the government will set up a National Automotive Council to facilitate implementation of the National Automotive Policy in a bid to boost the local motor vehicle assembly industry. President Uhuru Kenyatta, while launching a locally assembled Euro 4 Mitsubishi L200 pickup at State House, reiterated that the government is still committed to creating an enabling environment for the growth of the country's automotive industry towards being a predominant part of Kenyan economy.
According to the Ministry of Trade and Industry, the local Kenyan vehicle assembly industry has the capacity to produce 30,000 vehicles per annum, a huge margin from the current 6,000 units, accounting for less than 25% of the production capacity. It is for this reason that the Kenyan head of state encouraged stakeholders in the industry to continue working with the government to ensure it achieves its objectives of reviving and stabilizing the automotive sector.
My assurance and my commitment that we shall continue to work together to reach the targets that we envisioned way back there in 2019, and our determination to ensure that future governments also continue with the same policy.
He thanked Mitsubishi, Associated Vehicle Assembly AVA, and Simba Corporation for being true partners in the country's efforts in growing the industry. He noted that the country used to have one of the most vibrant automotive industries in the region. President Kenyatta said the government will remain steadfast in ensuring policies aimed at bolstering the growth of the industry continue to be implemented.
If your government does support it, we can work closely together and we can achieve things as a country and as an industry and move from.
Alanauko, Prime Edition.
The high cost of farm inputs has rendered farmers incapable of sustaining their livelihoods, threatening food security. A group of elderly women in the remote parts of the Kikuyu town is reaping big as they manufacture animal feeds at a cheaper cost for sale and consumption by their livestock. Nduta Mukami has more details.
The journey of the Fig Tree Group started years ago when some elderly women used 10,000 shillings, which they had saved in a sacco, to purchase cereals used as raw materials in animal feed manufacture. The group would manually mix soya beans, cotton seeds, sunflower, among other key ingredients to make animal feeds for poultry, pigs, and dairy cows. After some time, they managed to secure a 360,000 loan, which they used to purchase a milling machine. Now, they run a milling factory which has 41 employees.
Naonelea sababu hii chakula is coming outside of the country, kama tunaweza kuwa na hii mimea, sababu chakula ya kuku tunatumia mahindi, soya beans na sunflower. Sasa ndio tunaona sababu Kiambu tunaweza kupanda hizi vitu and they are doing very well. Sasa material itakuwa cheap na hata bei ya chakula itaendelea kuwa chini.
Armed with factory gears, the women are surviving the hard economic times by manufacturing animal feeds, which they use for their poultry business as well as sell surplus to the local farmers at an affordable rate. The group says their innovation was inspired by a training forum by the National Agricultural and Rural Inclusive Growth Project on food formulation training, which made them realize the niche in the market. The group now manufactures at least 400 kilograms of feed daily. Susan Joki Musheru, a member of the group, said since the establishment of the Value Addition venture, their poultry business has improved as they now sell more eggs.
Hii chakula inatusaidia sana sababu sisi ni wafugaji wa kuku. Sasa tunatengeneza chakula, tuko na kuku zetu, tunaenda tunafuga, mayai production inakuwa juu.
She said despite their resolve to make it in business, the market turbulence was threatening their venture by driving the production costs through the roof. She called for necessary interventions and support from the government to help expand their business.
Kilo moja ya grower tunanunua 70 shillings, lakini hizi tunatengeneza tunauza 50 per kg. Kwa hivyo hii project tunaona inaweza kuinua hata wa youth wa pande ya Kiambu. Ile kitu tunataka ni kushikwa mkono especially wa mama wa mashinani.
Nduta Mukami for Prime Edition.
Thank you, Nduta Mukami, for that story that brings to a close business news for tonight. My name is Caroline Jenga. Have a good night. See you tomorrow for more.
Are you an aspiring candidate in the upcoming general elections? Do you want your agenda and manifesto to reach your voters effectively? At KBC, we have the most comprehensive and credible online platform that has profiles of all prospective candidates. Log on to www.kbc.co.ke/2022 aspirants and let Kenyans know more about you, your past achievements, your manifesto, and your development agenda once you get elected to office. office. What's more, the website is easy to navigate. We will create your profile, post pictures and short videos with your campaign messages at affordable hosting fees. Log on to www.kbc.co.ke/2022 aspirants today and establish your brand authority as we lead towards the forthcoming general elections. As campaign intensifies for the upcoming general election, what does all this mean for you, the voter? What do the candidates have to offer? How prepared are agencies charged with the election process? Join John Kuria and Safina Chieng on Kenya Decides. This and every Tuesday from 10 p.m. on KBC Channel 1 as we unpack elections 2022 with a panel of various stakeholders. Make informed electoral decisions.
Well, good evening. As always, it is a pleasure to have your company for KBC Sports Update with me, Richard Munga. Now, let's get matters underway with the top story tonight, whereby national teams, the 2022 World Athletics Championships in Oregon, USA, as well as the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games in the UK, was flagged off today by President Uhuru Kenyatta. Kenya is sending a contingent of 46 athletes to the 2022 World Athletics Championships in Oregon, while 157 athletes will be representing the country at the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games.
Speaking during the brief ceremony held at the State House, Nairobi, President Uhuru Kenyatta commended the sportsmen and women for bringing pride and honor to the country.
There is no question in my mind, there is no question in the mind of almost 50 million of your colleagues that athletics has brought this nation pride. And by bringing us pride, it has brought us pride through you, because it is you who represent us out there. It is you who are the face of this great republic when you're out there. And we are truly grateful for the efforts that you put into what you do.
The president urged the teams to continue raising the country's profile high by shining at global events, expressing satisfaction that athletes were adequately prepared for the championships.
To be able to have made it, to go to the World Championships in Oregon, Commonwealth Games, hiyo sio kitu rahisi. It's been a lot of work, a lot of training, a lot of effort.
Sports Cabinet Secretary Ambassador Amina Mohamed thanked the president for the support he has always extended to Kenyan sports fraternity. The CS assured that her ministry, in partnership with all athletics organizations, prepared the teams well for the championships. Present at the event were the National Olympic Committee of Kenya President Paul Tergat and his Athletics Kenya counterpart Jackson Tuwei. Kenya is sending a contingent of 46 athletes to the 2022 World Athletics Championship in Oregon, while 157 athletes will represent the country at the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games.
Well, thank you, Dan Mwenda, for that report. Elsewhere, Team Kenya medalists from the 24th edition of the Deaflympic Games in Caxias do Sul, Brazil, were feted today by the Ministry of Sports. Gold medalists received $1 million, while silver and bronze medalists walked away with 750,000 shillings and 500,000 shillings, respectively.
Lucas Wandia Wanjiru and Simon Cherono Kibai were among the medalists who were fitted today after winning gold medal as the delayed 2021 Deaflympic Games in Brazil. Wanjiru won gold in the 3,000 meters steeplechase, while Kibai bagged a gold medal in the 10,000 and 5,000 meters races.
I'm truly proud. I think there was the time that Egypt was number one most of the time in Africa, and we came in. We are now the number ones in Africa, so we are proud to represent Africa and also influence other countries to follow our lead.
Other athletes who won gold medals include Ian Wambui Kahinga and Elkanah Kiprop Rono. They all received 1 million shillings each from the Ministry of Sport. 7 athletes were awarded 750,000 shillings after winning silver medals, while 12 who won bronze medals walked away with 500,000 shillings each. The awards ceremony, which was held here in Nairobi, was presided over by Sports Principal Secretary Joe Okudo. Okudo reiterated the ministry's commitment to supporting Paralympics teams.
It was a fantastic performance, and personally, when I joined the ministry, I was told the Deaf Olympics, they're the ones, so long as you give them support, resources, they know how to organize themselves, and they've got this habit of coming with very, very many gold medals, which we saw. And this beats all the other sporting events that the country has.
Team Kenya bagged a total of 24 medals, 5 gold, 7 silver and 12 bronze medals. Kenya was represented in the 5 disciplines, among them athletics, basketball, football, golf and handball. For Prime Edition Sports, I'm Daniel Mwendwa.
Now to other matters. Former Football Kenya Federation Chairman Nick Mwendwa has been summoned to appear before a Kiambu court to face corruption charges, barely a week after anti-corruption, of course, court withdrew a similar case. Kiambu resident magistrate Wilson Radin ordered that Mwendwa appears in person before the court on Friday to take plea. According to the Office of the Director of Prosecutions, Mwendwa will face fresh charges of misappropriation of 38 million shillings. The Office of the Director of the Prosecutions is expected to file more evidence in the charges. Mwendwa's lawyer Victor Omwebu said his client is not aware of the preferred charges so as to respond, or rather so as to prepare a defense. And to other matters, also FKF Premier League side Bandari FC has offered 3 talented players from Taita Taveta County a full education scholarship. Kenya Ports Authority Acting Managing Director John Mungemi said the players will be absorbed in the Bandari youth in readiness to join the senior team. Accompanied by Bandari FC coach Anthony Kimani and the youth coach Alexander Shikanga, Mungemi said the new recruits impressed scouts during the Taita Taveta County League that culminated with the final at Voi Stadium. Stanley Moura scored a 74th-minute goal from a free kick to steer the Gunners to a 1-0 victory over Kale Kali in a closely contested final. Well, that's all the time we had for sport tonight, but just an update. Of course, Gor Mahia, former Kenya Premier League champions, have signed a new deal with Betafric, that is for the 2022-2023 Kenya Premier League season. That is worth 76.5 million shillings a year. That is for 3 years, which includes 5 million for kitting as well as 1.5 million shillings for the players' insurance. And internationally, the Women Euro Championship continues today. We had an earlier match in which Denmark beat Finland 1-0, and in the second match at 10 p.m. we have Germany taking on Spain. Oh, that's all the time we have for sports. See you tomorrow, but don't go too far. Tom Boyer is on the other side of the studio.
Many thanks indeed, Richard Munga, for that tea update. The sponsorship to Gor Mahia, of course, comes as a relief. You remember Kogalo suffered a blow when BetSafe stopped its financial support. Good for football. Well, Kenya Decides is coming up next, and JJ Kioria is hosting a panel, and the topic of discussion tonight is the level of preparedness of IEBC. So on behalf of KBC Prime Edition, I want to thank you so much for watching from Nairobi, Kenya. My name is Tom Boyer. Good night and God bless.
Good evening and welcome to Kenya Decides. Tonight, our focus is on the preparedness of Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission in terms of its preparedness to conduct the election that is about 27 days away. Obviously, we've had complaints from political players. To start with you, when you look at the preparedness of the IEBC to conduct this election specifically, how prepared do you think they are?
One, let me say this. Number one, you'll never get anybody who is adequately prepared for an election. An election is the second most difficult logistical engagement after war. And nobody ever gets prepared for those. It takes a lot to be able to prepare. That's why we have an election cycle for 5 years. And within the 5 years, you're expected to prepare voters in terms of education, in terms of registration, in terms of audit of that process, train officials, get strategic materials that can be used for the elections, ensure the laws are there and the laws are reformed if there is any reform to be done. And there is a concert of so many actors in this, so that it's not just the commission you're talking about, but you're talking about the entire edifice of the political governance structure in the country to ensure there's a credible election. Granted, we have an election which is coming on the 9th of August, in the next 27 days or so. The commission so far says that, well, we have seen them certify a voter register, so we have a voter register which you could be using. They have talked about gazetting polling stations, so we have polling stations which are in place. We have seen them register candidates who are going to participate, over 16,000 candidates who are going to be fighting out for 1,882 positions in the country. You can also say that there are going to be about 14,000 losers because the only seats which are being fought for is 1,800. And then they have now embarked on the process of securing, or at least getting the strategic materials, including the ballot papers, which some of them have come through. The commission says that the last ballot papers will be coming into the country by the 29th of this month. So in a way, you can be able to say, as far as the 9th election is concerned, we have left with a few things that we need to tick. One of them would be the kits. Still the testing of those kits, the simulation of the transmission, so that it can be very clear that the transmission process is going to be successful. The recruitment and training of E-Day polling officials, which I think is underway as we speak. And then logistics in terms of distributing the materials to the 46,000, over 46,000 polling stations across the country. And then, of course, setting up the security apparatus that will, again, try to secure not only just the materials, but also the personnel, and the voters will be participating in this process. So I think from that, we have a few things that are still left to be ticked off, but largely from the main issues, we should be prepared for the elections. And
we'll be looking at the elections timetable in a bit. But from where you sit as a political actor, representing a Gano party, and probably even from the perspective of political parties, do you think IEBC is adequately prepared? Other than the other things that are to come later in the month, so far, do you think the IEBC is prepared?
Well, I think from a Gano party where we have the presidential candidate as Wahiga Mwaure Wahiga, being our candidate at that level of presidency, would say that IEBC is about 80% prepared.
Okay.
And would say because we have got the 3 levels of preparedness, or the 3 levels of operation, to be able to bring this this election process to a closure. We had the first one where they did the voters registration. And actually, we had a big challenge because a lot of people did not come. A lot of our youth did not register as voters. Up to today, still, I work a lot with young people where I'm working, and I'm surprised. So many of them, especially those in colleges, they're not voters as much as they have the IDs to be able to participate, or they are of age to be able to participate in this process. So that was a big gap, and that was a process of preparedness. And then the next level, which we are now looking into, is actually the voting process. And you remember last time we lost, we had spoiled votes of over 500,000 spoiled votes. Those were so many spoiled votes. And I think part of preparedness would have been to look at how did we perform last time, and what are the issues that made us not perform at whatever percentage. One of the things and one of the areas that they really failed was on that, the spoiled votes. There were so many. I'm not sure that they have been able to address that issue.
And we'll talk about it.
Yes.
Because we will try and audit the mistakes that led to the nullification of the 2017 election and whether they have rectified it. But proceed.
Yeah, definitely, that's important that we look into it, because each and every vote will count. It counts, and every Kenyan wake up so early, looks forward to this day, looks forward to making an impact and a difference in their nation. So each and every vote counts. So that is one area that really, as a Ghana party, we are so concerned about the preparedness of IEBC. As my colleague has said, the civic education, the awareness, the processes, and making sure that Kenyans are actually well informed about the processes that they are supposed to take, and also being well informed of the processes that IEBC is taking to ensure that we have a credible, free and fair. I'd say, I'll repeat that 100 times.
All right.
And one of the things we are saying is that, IEBC needs to take each and every opportunity that is availed to them, including such a program. That this is a program and a big opportunity for them to ensure, to communicate to Kenyans about the preparedness, the process, and how ready they are, so that we can continue building trust, building, confidence, and encouragement of Kenyans to come and vote.
All right.
Because if they don't have that confidence, most of them will still keep losing votes.
All right.
We've already lost some in the youth. Now we are going to lose more because people may not have confidence in them.
And we'll go further, a bit on that. But to be fair, on the IEBC probably, today they have dispatched lorries and vehicles to other counties for voter education. This evening they were on KBC Channel 1, some of their officers showing people how to vote. But looking at the election timetable, Musa, was the IEBC lagging behind at some point? Because you remember, for example, when you talk about the register, the publication of the register, some political actors already started complaining about, that the IEBC is late in terms of publishing that register. Even in terms of gazetting the candidates, it appears like, there were murmurs also about the lateness of gazetting the candidates. And the question is, at some point, did the IEBC lag behind in terms of doing these things?
I think there have been lapses in terms of the timelines throughout the election calendar. It's not just about the days that these last 60 days or so towards elections. I think it is a question that has been asked over very many of the processes. As an observer, I would go as far back as the question of electoral reforms, the legal framework, for instance. We saw bills and we saw laws which were being taken to Parliament even as it was closing those last days. The good practice, best practice is that once an election is over, you mop up all the recommendations, all the issues that need to be attended to within 1 or 2 years after the election, in a period of political sobriety, when everybody can be able to sit down and think through the process. You need to undertake a comprehensive review and reform of your electoral process, so that by the time we are getting into the muddied waters where you have campaigns, a lot of heated exchanges, where people are not sober, to be able to reflect on both these things, you've done and justice to the legal system and some of the longer term electoral reforms. But again, in this country we have a continuous voter registration process. Because of the peculiarities of the Kenyan culture, everybody rushes to the voter register on the last minute. So IBC has to come up with a strategy in which you can do some kind of mass voter registration. But every day, once the election is over, every day you can be able to walk to that IBC station in the constituency and register. Same with voter education. It's supposed to be a continuous process throughout the electoral cycle. There have been some challenges here and there, especially on questions about funding. The IBC is not funded adequately throughout the electoral calendar. And a lot of the money comes very late in the day. You saw early this year when IBC was being given a chunk of part of their budget. It comes very late in the day, so that now suddenly they have to move up and speed up the process. So quite a number of things are held back to back. From, I think, 6 months to the elections, we have so many things which are back to back. The procurement process, the audit of the voter register, and so many other activities, including the voter education itself. So I was not very surprised that as we came towards now the home stretch of the 60 days to the elections, then you start seeing these, moving timelines in terms of, have we registered the candidates? Have we been able to secure the register? The commission announced that we have satisfied the register. It took nearly about a week or so before it could even be available. The same goes with the question about the registration of the candidates. Some of the problems which were occasioned or which occasioned themselves for this were such things as litigation. You have cases in court. Do you go ahead and start certifying the register of candidates, which you then need to gazette and go on to print ballot papers, or do we wait until some of these cases are heard and ruled upon? So there have been a number of issues which are creating or which are spreading the electoral timelines all over the place, especially as we come closer to the elections, and some of those could be the reasons why we were seeing fluid timelines coming through.
And of course, we continue to expect the IBC Commissioner Francis Wanderi. The seat is still there, empty, waiting for his arrival. He makes it. He will join us in this conversation. As we delve into that, from where you sit, and because you were referring also to 2017, we had the problem in 2017 of Parliament introducing laws that affect elections at the very year when the IBC is supposed to organize an election, including in 2017 when we chased away commissioners and recruiting others in February when the elections is in August. We are almost finding ourselves in the same hole where new election laws are being introduced the very same year when we are doing elections. From where you sit as a political party, are you concerned about that?
Indeed, we are very concerned because introduction of new laws at the, just at the height or at the end, where we are just about to start being serious, being more aggressive, more activities coming in, affects the whole process. Because if they introduce a law or reforms that are going to affect the operations of IBC, it actually means that this introduction may actually affect the budgets that they had, the processes that they had, and actually it confuses them. So as a nation, I think we need to own up to this election process, such that even as the people of Kenya, the organizations, the political parties, each one of us need to own up to this particular process and understand that when we do anything that affects the process, it actually affects all of us as Kenyans. And as registrators or people who are supposed to make reforms, parliamentarians, actually they are people who are put into office through the process. So they should be the most concerned and the most actually interested in this reform. And again, we need to reach a point whereby as Kenyans, we don't look at things from a selfish perspective. Because most of us, especially political people, they look at issues from a very selfish perspective. How is it going to give us a milestone as a party? How is it going to give me a milestone as an individual? Those are the big problems that we have in Kenya. And we need to look at ourselves and actually start being nationalists. Start building a nation that is going to, to involve or bring to fold each and every Kenyan. That child, that youth, that woman, that man. Let us look at ourselves as Kenyans and do laws that are going to affect all of us on a positive perspective. So introduction of laws towards the end of it actually affects us. Number two, even we see the commissioners that were, they are very new. They are very new. I'm happy that Chebukati has been through the waters. My confidence is that we have a chairman that has been through the waters.
And two other commissioners, actually.
Yeah, two other commissioners that have been there. So that gives us an opportunity to see people who have been there, deep-rooted in the process, and that gives us a bit of hope. Hopefully that even the others, because of that, they are able to get the energy and the strength and the warmth to be able to take up the responsibility and give us a free and fair election process. Yes.
Fantastic. Chebukati on Saturday talked about the vilification of the commission. And looking, like about 2 weeks ago or a week ago, there appears to be a semblance of vilification of the IEBC, particularly on the disagreement between manual register and electronic register, Musau. And I mean, how do they sail through this debate when you have two major protagonists disagreeing on a very important and salient subject?
For me, the elephant in the room when it comes to issues about elections is stakeholder engagement. For me, that's a big issue, because this is not an IBC election. This is not Azimio election. It is not a Kenya Kwanza election. It is a Kenyan election. And we want all Kenyans to participate in the political process. It's a political process. Political process require some level of transparency, accountability, engagement, participation. We want everybody to be engaged in the process. My prayer has been that the Commission needed to engage stakeholders a little bit more, especially when we are making decisions which shape or which influence and persuade the players in certain ways. All these are contestants. We have political contestants. We have 4 presidential candidates in these elections. Everybody wants to see that the game is played or the process is going to be very transparent, very clear, so they can be able to accept the kind of outcomes which will be processed out of the elections. When you want to come up with, and it's something that we even spoke about when IBC, the first time IBC made a mention of the use of the digital registers. If you ask me as an election person, that should be the best way to go, the use of the digital register. Because I think at the end of the day, why did you introduce technology? We wanted efficiency. We wanted not to have dead voters walking from their graves to come and vote. We wanted to ensure that biometrics were used. We register using biometrics. Why wouldn't we use the same system to be able to identify? But because we have to get a consensus on that process, then consult as widely. Allow these political players to come on board, reflect on your proposals, and then you agree on some. And that's exactly what happened at the end of the day. They all came to the same table. It was agreed that we are going to have the digital register as a principal register, but we're also going to have the manual register in case we have any problems coming from the digital process. So it's a question of calling everybody. You sit on one table, you agree on the process. That's how you do with politics. Elections is a political process. Bring everybody on board, bring the media, let the media be aware. That's why I'm very happy about some of the moves that IBC has made actually over the last 1 month or so have been positive. And that's why we have to give a tick where it is required. They met the Editors Guild. and said, let's sit down, let's establish a protocol on how we can be able to disseminate results. That's important because they've not been having that before. They had that meeting with the political presidential candidates. They've had meeting with the private sector, KEPSA. They've had meetings with different other entities. That is the way to go. You'll never get everything. I started by saying you'll never get everything right in any election. But because of those challenges and those limitations, that's the reason why you need to involve very many people. So that tukikubaliana, we are stuck here. Tunakubaliana, we are stuck here. I give an example of the Gambian election. Gambia in West Africa, a small country. Up to today, it uses marbles. Marbles, what you call bano. No, to choose their candidates. They just decide on the colors. We'll give you the black one, the red one, and you choose those colors. And up to today, they agree. So long as they agree that this is the system you're going to use, it's a simple system, everybody understands it, they go ahead with it. It may have problems. If you brought the same system in Kenya, we'd have a problem with it. But because, and the biggest issue that we have talked about this election, especially the Kenyan electoral process, is a question of trust. We don't trust processes. We don't trust what the policemen do with us once we get inside that place. So because of that, be transparent, invite scrutiny, invite the participation of the different players, and then once a consensus is arrived at, follow the consensus. That is their easy path out of every problem. But the difficult one is when we posture, that we give a posture that this is our way or the highway. That becomes a very dangerous.
And hold up, because we'll talk about the manual, the register vis-a-vis the electronic register. From where you sit as a political actor, what is your position exactly, particularly a Ghana party in this matter?
Yes.
What is your position exactly on the manual electronic register debate?
Actually, when we had the stakeholders meeting last month, and is it this month? And we discussed at Windsor. All the 4 presidential candidates were there. Presidential candidate Maure Wahiga was also there. And IEBC actually discussed that point at a very, and explained very well about electronic voting process and also the manual voting process. And they said that, the reason why they would encourage the electronic process, actually they have put it as the primary method of voting. It's because actually we are at an era whereby, everything is technology. Everything is technology. Today, during the conference, the Zambian people talked about how they have used technology to register voters. And that has encouraged the young people to really step into it, and they registered in big numbers. Because through technology registration, they found it easy. They could register from home, they could register from college, they could register from anything. And they were able to have more young people participating than before. So this is the way to go. We hope that we can be able, from next time, we can be able to register from wherever you are, and for, as easy as that. It is possible to deal with technology. And even go forward to making it even more possible for us to vote electronically wherever you are. That, elections are not going to be a big deal. We can use as little money as possible and make it as easy as possible if you use technology. And that's why each one of us needs to encourage that process. Each one of us needs to, to start trusting technology, because even in our offices, this is the platform that we are moving on.
Let me ask you a quick one. Yeah. Let me ask you a quick one. Because Musau talks about stakeholder engagement, particularly for people like you, like a Ghana party, which is participating in this election. Most of the times when we hear the back and forth is between the 2 major actors.
Yes.
Have you been engaged adequately by the IEBC as actors in this election, or the IEBC appears to obsess with the major 2?
No. I would say that IEBC has been inviting a Ghana party equally as other parties. In every process, major process that is required of us, or required of any political party, or any player at that level of presidential or any other level of candidature, they have always been able to invite us. As for this particular date that we had the presidential candidate, I was actually there with my presidential candidate Wahiga Mwaure, and they discussed highly about it and talked about the primary level, whereby they are going to use electronic process. And I asked them a question. Does that mean that mother, women, with our bags, we can even forget where we kept our ID last night? But it is just in the bag. But you look for it in each and every pass, you can't get it. So can I walk in and maybe you're just queuing. You just get there, you can't get your ID. So can I just walk in and vote? And that is the question, because with the primary level whereby you have the electronic process, then you don't even need an ID. That young person who lost his ID maybe a week ago, can they still come and vote? The good news is that they can still go and vote, because the primary level, they just need your fingerprints. Then the secondary level is when they'll go back to your ID or your passport to be able, if they did not,
First instance is biometrics.
Yeah, first instance is biometric. So I would say that IEBC should start telling Kenyans, actually, if you have lost your ID, still come and try your chance.
Tell me something.
Yeah.
We're still on this debate.
Yes.
Very quickly before I engage Mustafa. You're saying you had consensus as political parties.
Yes, we did.
That the primary thing you're going to do is to use the electronic register.
All the parties said yes.
Then the manual one as
secondary,
backup.
as a backup.
So these contestations between your peers in Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, where did it come from?
We were surprised to hear them actually talking thereafter that they would want to have the voter registration. I don't know what. So we are quite surprised. And again, my presidential candidate still insisted that us as a Agano party, we are for electronic process, because we are a party that believes that, we are at a time of electronic, of technology. And we should embrace technology as much as possible. However, today, again, it was also a very good conference, whereby they brought other stakeholders to be able to continue emphasizing on the same. And people like Communication Authority were there, people like ICT Authority were there, and they were able to really explain about the whole process and preparedness of the electronic voting process. And that was very encouraging. However, they still say that about 4% of the people of the regions, they do not have connectivity, and that was scaring a bit, because if they don't have connectivity, what alternatives do we have? And they said they would use satellite. The satellite part of it, they need to really confirm to Kenyans that it is okay. Right. Then the 4%, they never told us which counties would be. It would be good to know which are these counties, so that these counties do not just hear, that 4%. 4% of who? 4% of where? Because if Nairobi do you have a percentage that is not connected? If it is Mandera, or it is Namu, where? Or it's my home in Nyeri. Where is this 4% located? I think we need to know that.
I mean, the concerns here, of course, stem from what you were talking about sometimes, even mistrust amongst political actors. And in this election, those who favor electronic voter register have had accusations thrown against them that they have a way of influencing the king's kids in one way or another. The manual register also has, allegations of that it is likely that the dead people will wake up and vote in this manual register. But the big question is it impossible for IEBC to achieve consensus or even clear this doubt amongst political actors that we can vote either manually or electronically and have a free, fair, and credible election?
Like I said, the secret to having or building confidence is engagement and transparency and openness. You can have a robust conversation. Of course, IBC does not have the luxury of time to keep talking to political players about this thing. But let's get some facts right. One, there is nothing called a manual register and a digital register. It's the same register. You just have, it's like having something in a document in a machine, and then you have a hard copy.
And the physical copy.
It is the same, the physical copy and the digital copy. It's one register. It's just one. So first, let's not create a fuss around that there are two sets of register. It's just one register. The issue is that there is the constitution, the election laws talk of a complementary system. Complementary, that should this one have a problem, we can always revert to the other one. And I think IBC is within their right to be able to say, well, we're going to make then the digital the primary one. And like I say, the argument there is we have been registering people using the digital one. So that could be, and it offers also more options in terms of, like she was saying, in terms of identification and all that. Manual registers, basically the identification, usually you come with your ID. They have to have if they have a photo on that register, maybe it is a faded out photo. They have to really scrutinize whether you are the one. It's one of the reasons why, by the way, when you go to polling stations, the clerks are supposed to shout out your name so that the party agents can also be able to identify whether this is somebody who is supposed to be voting here. So there's a lot of identification and processes which are going on at the same time. The digital register attempted to deal with quite a number of those issues because they have nearly a foolproof system of identifying somebody who's coming to vote. But like I said, we have to all to agree. It's a question of consensus. Some people may not be able to understand if there are aspersions which are being cast in terms of the electronic for one reason or the other. Give them people assurance that there's something else which can also be able to be referred to, that physical copy that rests their issues. So I think that's the engagement. It's only that we should not allow. I believe first consensus was built at Windsor. That was what the commission was trying to do. Moving forward, I don't think that should be a big debate. It should be something which has already been settled in terms of the discussions, that there will be a manual register as a backup, that there will be use of the digital register as a primary way of identifying the voters who come to the stations. Should we have a problem, we can establish protocols about how we can be able to deal with any problems which is going to occur in the polling station.
Musao, so because you're talking about engagement, which is quite important. The points that have been brought against the manual register, and I think you've had, I think the Kenya Kwanza side addressed that, why they are opposed to the manual register in a way. Azimio also says we must have a manual, even if the primary thing is the digital backup. But there's also the allegation of a Smartmatic international company given this job to provide technology to the KIMS kit. Said obviously to have a bad record of tender irregularities and providing equipment prone to tampering. Going back to the IEBC, has it been able to adequately deal with some of these rumors, particularly not just among political actors, but the supporters of these political actors, because this poisons the environment around an election?
The quick answer to that is no. And I say no because you're raising it now. Why are you raising that issue now? Why are you questioning something? If everything was very clear in terms of some of these issues that people are raising out there, we wouldn't have a conversation. We wouldn't have a discussion around it. So the onus is on IEBC to explain most of the issues, whether we are talking about some hideous issues about the company which has been hired to do these things, whether it is KPMG which is auditing the voter register, or any other vendor. Remember, we're also going to be having the Safaricom's as part of the systems in terms of the transmission. All those things should be laid bare. Remember, this is a public process. And as somebody said in a workshop where we were discussing issues about open data and opening information to the public, he said, public data is public, period. If it's public, it means it should be available. So make information available as much as possible in an open way. Openness means, can you disaggregate the data? Can you offer it in terms of accuracy and timeliness? And in terms of granularity, is it broken down to smaller pieces so that everybody can be able to understand? If you give information in that way, people get the picture very clearly. If you're explaining these are the vendors who are coming to our, who are working with us on this public process, these are the terms of engagement, this is what we have worked with them, these are the issues we have raised with them, then people will understand the process much more, in a much more improved way. And that will reduce the kind of questions and discussions around your processes.
I would assume because IBC is doing this on behalf of the public, the procurement of some of his services would be available, or the details about the procurement of the material or either the software should be available, or the information should be available not only to the public but also to candidates and political parties. Has that happened?
Well, I think I would say that the procurement processes of the government are very open. And for purpose of IEBC, some of these services are not being done today. These are services that were offered way back, like it is the electronic equipment or the gadgets that are going to be used. Everything has not been procured today. It was procured, a year back. And so the parties that are really complaining about those issues that are related to procurement, they are too late. They are too late. They should have raised those
Even if
issues.
they're too late, do you think their concerns are not
those concerns
in place?
are, they're not genuine because they're not genuine. Because if they were genuine, they would have raised them long ago. Because Azimio is not a baby. It's an old, it's an old party. It's a party that has been there in all this, not even one, not Azimio, but the actors within Azimio. They have been there. And so they understand all these processes, and this is what they were expecting. And they've got a team and the capacity to be able to access all those processes far before we get here. Number two,
I'm asking so. Sorry to cut you short, Jane. I'm asking so because as a person who represents the Honourable Wahiga Mwaure and the party, Agano Party, are you aware of when, for example, the IEBC procured Smartmatic?
Yes, we are quite aware about those processes. Okay. I may not be able to tell you about the date, as of to date, but we trust the process. We have no issues about those that they have already given jobs to be able to give services. As a Ghana party, we have no issues over that. Number two, when Azimio comes to say that they now want to go through the complementary method rather than the primary level, I think they are not being genuine, because they accepted when we met as stakeholders. They said that they also agreed to electronic process as a primary process, then should be backed up by the complementary process. And IEBC has confirmed even today that the hard copy, the physical copy, the physical data will be available in each and every station. To be fair to
Azimio, they are not opposed to the electronic voter register. They're saying it is a manual backup they need, probably if digital fails.
And that is, IEBC said that they will provide that. It will be there. Because technology can fail. You can have power blackout everywhere. Nothing will work. So it will mean that automatically we'll resort to that. And we have got areas.
So you're saying they are haggling over obvious things?
Yeah, those are obvious things.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
It's obvious that it will be there.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. Fair point you make there. Musa, when you look at the 2017 election and what led to the nullification of the presidential election, much of it was about, procedure. Has the IEBC proven that it has audited its systems, that the country does not fall into that hole again, where an election is nullified solely because of procedures, not because of what you would say gross mistakes, but because of procedures?
Well, I think IBC has been on record of saying that they have addressed all the questions which were raised by the 2017 Supreme Court nullification of the first elections. They have, on occasion, have had even media engagements, even to say that even some of the questions, some of the very interesting questions like open server questions also had been addressed over the period. My question remains the same question as the one I was responding to earlier. When these questions are raised in media, and these questions are raised by stakeholders about whether this was addressed, it basically means that whatever message came out was not very clear, was not very, they did not have enough carry with it, enough clarity so that we settle the issue and we are able to move on. And therefore that still means there is an aspect of communication that has not come very clearly. in my view and from where I sit, the major issues about that 2017 ruling had to do with the processes, especially to do with the transmission process of the resource in the manner in which the laws had prescribed. There were 11,000 polling stations which we never had any results coming through. There were a number of errors, what they were calling ultimately illegalities and irregularities, which were in the process of the transmission, and that needed to come out very clearly. A number of laws have been put in place, most importantly the Election Amendments Act, which was taken to Parliament by IBC early this year. It's among the laws which I was saying was coming into the electoral process too late in the day. We now have a situation where IBC is able to transmit images, and that's one of the ways that I try to deal with the issue of transmission, saying the discussion around the kind of data that was being transmitted was trashed by the Supreme Court, so that we needed now to have the exact form, being the image of that form being the one which is now transmitted to bombers. Have we therefore addressed all the problems that we were looking at? We had a simulation on the 9th of June where IBC attempted to transmit from 2,900 polling stations. They were able to only secure a success rate around 45%. So that still tells you we still have a problem with transmission. She's talked about the question of 4G, 3G connectivity, 4% of the country. We were given a figure of 1,111 polling stations across the country. Important to know which ones they are, like she was saying, but again, we still have some issues in terms of whether we can be able to transmit across the board. Yes, they've talked about satellite modems being employed to be able to deal with issues about connections, but have we settled that entire issue? Again, I go back to the question of communication. Can the Commission be able to clearly communicate to the public of Kenya, not to experts, not to people in the know, but the public of Kenya, that this is what happened in 2017. These are the issues, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are the solutions. If that comes out very clearly, we will settle the question. The question is communication, in my view.
All right. I want us to take a breather. Of course, when you come back, you will pick it up because you also wanted to talk about the failures of 2017 and whether they've been addressed in this election. But for now, we're taking a breather. Keep watching Kenya Decides. The hashtag is Kenya Decides 2022. We're still in studio with Musau, the national coordinator for ILOG, Jen Mudega, who is the organizing secretary, Agano Party. Don't go too far. We're coming back in a minute.
We shall legalize weed.
Professor George Luchiri Wajakoya of the Roots Party. Raila Amolo Odinga of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Party.
Unajua mimi sina pesa ya serikali ama ya kashfa.
David Mwaure Wahiga of the Agano Party. And
hakuna kura ya hasla mtaiba.
William Samoei Ruto of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance. Presidential Debate 2022. Do not adjust your sets.
No, my love. You have to hold on to life. You have to hold on, my love.
She is the one I wanted to get rid of, not you. My sister will still suffer a lot if you were to die.
Why do you look like that? What happened to you? Did you fall? I don't understand.
Someone tried to take something from me, but they won't succeed even with all the punches in the world.
Please, come on, madam. Please, you can't be...
Are you an aspiring candidate in the upcoming general elections? Do you want your agenda and manifesto to reach your voters effectively? At KBC, we have the most comprehensive and credible online platform that has profiles of all prospective candidates. Log on to www.kbc.co.ke/2022 aspirants and let Kenyans know more about you, your past achievements, your manifesto, and your development agenda once you get elected to office. What's more, the website is easy to navigate. We will create your profile, post pictures and short videos with your campaign messages at affordable hosting fees. Log on to www.kbc.co.ke/2022 aspirants today and establish your brand authority as we lead towards the forthcoming general elections.
Welcome back to Kenya Decides. The conversation is online. Kenya Decides 2022. You can watch us live on YouTube, Twitter, as well as on Facebook. Still engaging Jen Muthiga from Agano Party, the organizing secretary, and the national coordinator of ILOG, Sao Mule. Thank you very much again. As we continue with this conversation, let's pick it up from where Musao left in terms of whether the mistakes of 2017 will be carried forward to the 2022 election.
Yes, as I said when we were starting, we have a big concern about the spoiled votes. We had about 500,000 spoiled votes plus. And this was a very big number, very big indeed. Because any single person who was involved in that came out with a lot of desire to go and vote and to have their vote make a difference. So when they were put as trash, it was a big concern. And it's a big concern for us as a Agano Party because mobilizing these votes is not easy. It's very expensive. It calls for a lot of energy, a lot of support, a lot of love for that person to go and vote for you. So for it to go and be waste, it is a big concern for us. So what would want to know from IEBC actually, they have not actually talked about it because from where we sit, we think one of the reasons why people did not, we had that big number is because of lack of good civic education, lack of good awareness, lack of proper communication. Because we have, KBC, for example, you have got radio stations for all the communities. Did they use those radio stations to be able to communicate with the various communities of our people? As much as we are so much Kiswahili, we still are so much into our own languages. We communicate better, and that's why our songs, we love them so much. Songs sung in our languages, because they touch our heart and we understand it very well. So the same way IEBC should take up communication and communicate to us in our languages, the way we understand, and use all available communication facilities. Media has grown. We have got, from the time of digital migration, the media space have really grown. It's such a wide space. How effectively have you used this space as IEBC to be able to communicate effectively to Kenyans? So I would really want to say that, we need to take up that and reduce, if not finish completely, the number of spoiled votes. IEBC needs to confirm that.
All right, that is something they need to confirm because sometimes there are candidates competing with spoiled votes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about institutions that are supposed to aid the preparedness of the IEBC. And talk about judiciary, for example. over this litigation that emanated from the nomination process, we've had Chebukati say on Saturday that there are 31 disputes pending before the High Court that risk postponement of the election in those 31 areas. I think one of them has been dispensed with today regarding Johnson Sakaja. But how would you say generally the judiciary has acted in terms of aiding the IEBC to conduct a free and fair election?
First, let me say that the Chief Justice, I think, came out the other day to pronounce herself on the matter and say they are going to prioritize the election issues. I think she gave up to Friday this week for those matters to be concluded. So that's a good step. The issue that I would have is that, there is, we've had a number of court cases for me, which, and we need clarity on these matters. Let me back up. The Judicial Committee on Election was set up ostensibly to ensure that the judiciary was well prepared on matters to do with elections and litigation or issues, petitions which will be coming from elections. I had an opportunity to speak to the likes of David Maraga, the former Chief Justice, David Majanja, who are working in that committee, and they were clear that the judiciary needed to understand the electoral processes, being that electoral processes are political processes, not legal processes. And that is where the big problem has always been for the courts. And that's the reason why you can even see this discordance between how the judiciary is dealing with the cases which have been brought before it and IBC and its timelines. See, there are political issues here. Elections is not going to be pushed back. Elections is going to be on the 9th of August. You have a judiciary which must pronounce itself to cases which have been brought before it, but also must try, through its own expeditious processes, be able to adequately give justice to the people who brought the cases. So, and sometimes it can take long. So we needed that kind of preparatory framework within the judiciary so they can be able to deal with some of those issues with some level of speed and urgency. And that has not been forthcoming. There's been another problem which has emerged, I think, over the last few months. Through a court order, IBC and the ORPP were forced to talk to the political parties to ensure that they submitted compliant lists from the party nominations. And a court order trashed that particular direction, so that it was no longer a requirement. So when you have this back and forth, we have a court order which tells IBC do this, another one comes, says don't do it. Where is the coherency? Where is the coherent, jurisprudence emerging from these kind of decisions to guide the commission forward, to guide candidates, to guide political parties and other actors? So, in my view, there's been a lot of some issues which have cropped up, especially we need to see some level of clarity coming from the courts in terms of the direction that if we are going to aid, like you're saying, the electoral process, the courts must pronounce themselves with clarity and consistency. That way, and then they must also acknowledge that there are timelines that need to be attended to. So, as they do whatever they have to do, and as they give fair hearings to and dispense justice to the people who seek it, it must be understood that we are also working within a framework, a political framework, and therefore we need to see consistency, we need to see clarity, and there must be an acknowledgement there's another environment that we are operating under.
What do you think about the judiciary and its participation in aiding a credible and free election?
The judiciary is a very important institution because just as IEBC, the next most important organ of this process is the judiciary. And they need to be seen by all Kenyans as being, supporting the electoral process in a free and fair process. Otherwise, if we don't see that, we are having to have a problem, because even candidates, even as they go to take their cases to court, it becomes a challenge that they are taking to a system whereby they do not trust. However, we also had a situation whereby, though our IEBC still say that they are not able, their strength to be able to address most of the legal issues, and some of them are petty legal issues that can be addressed from, easy communication and all that. That they could have a committee to address some of the issues that are being brought by various candidates or various institutions on the electoral process, rather than everything going to court. Some of these things can be, can be addressed at the IEBC
You're
level.
suggesting arbitration?
Yes, arbitration or a committee that can be able to sit down and listen. Maybe we are just the two of us as candidates, that you have differences. And some of these differences may be just because of processes. And once a process is explained to a candidate, they're able to understand it and say, oh, that was the reason. Then they agree they agree that, it was free and fair. So that everything does not just go to judiciary, but we can have some processes that guide it and make things to work faster than otherwise. But as my colleague says, that the judiciary, personally, I would say that it needs to be seen, and not be seen. Actually, it needs to be the institution that it is expected to be. Provide a process that every candidate can get a free and fair process, and the institution like IEBC, they are also guided and supported to provide a free and fair election.
All right. I just want to add something extra on the question of the judiciary. She's talking about alternative ways in which some of these issues can be addressed. Part of, again, some of the issues that we have picked up with the judiciary is the fact that, remember the Code of Conduct Committee, the committee which has been set up by IBC to be able to deal with some of these issues around Code of Conduct. We make the political parties sign codes of conduct, the aspirants are signing the same. The courts ruled earlier, I think it was just after the nomination process, no, just before the nomination processes, when we had the cases of Sabina Chege and others, that committee was unconstitutional. So basically, you've taken out an arm of the IBC that could be able to deal with some of those small issues. And remember, one of the reasons why that committee had been set up is because some of the issues which are happening, Agano is on the field right now. We have Azimio on the field. Whatever happens out there in the field in terms of breaches of the Code of Conduct, you want an expeditious process that determines cases in such a way that if you have to disqualify a Gano, or you have to disqualify a candidate, or disqualify an Azimio candidate, it is done very quickly. Court processes, if you leave this thing to the court process again, it can take even 6 months before as it goes through the due process that courts are expected to go through. So that takes away an adjudicator or somebody, an arbitration space where a political issue could have been settled. But we also have the PPDT, Political Parties Dispute Tribunal, which can also address some of the issues, especially the ones which are emerging from the political parties directly, without having to go all the way to IEBC and others. But I'm just saying, let us create a very clear framework for adjudication of electoral issues, for arbitration of those issues, and a consistent one, coherent and easy to follow. If the judiciary can be able to offer that in the process, I think that will do a lot of good to the country. But I'm also hesitant to add that judiciary is one of the more progressive actors when it comes to the electoral process.
It's one question I want to pose to you, because comparing to 2017, for example,
yes,
and this election, there are those who would argue the judiciary right now is a bit polite or mindful of the electoral cycle as compared to 2017. You remember in 2017, Judge Odunga issued an injunction against returning officers a day to the election. It took the Court of Appeal to sit at night to overturn that decision. Sometimes even the IEBC was stopped from printing ballot papers to accommodate other candidates. We have not seen a lot of it this year. So would you say then the judiciary has improved as compared to the Maraga?
No, you're very clear that there's been a very big leap from what we were having in 2017. I mean, those were ad hoc decisions which are totally jolting the entire process. And now we have seen them take cognizance of that framework. we are still not out of the woods. The issue for me is that it's a learning curve. It's the reason why they set up the Judicial Committee on Elections. That's what I was offering, that through that, then they are able to better prepare themselves moving forward. So they have taken, I think, hold of that. They have acknowledged that it's a political process and a number of issues must be dealt with quite expeditiously and timely, in a timely fashion, so that it can be able to fit within the frame of the elections. But we are still seeing something. Other things are still, that's what I'm saying, we're still not out of the woods, because we still have that discordance in terms of some of the rulings creates, it befogs the process, and that is something you don't want to see, especially at this late stage of the game. So we welcome the fact that the Chief Justice saw it fit to be able to advance some of these issues and be able to prioritize these cases. But there's still a lot to learn in terms of adequately supporting this electoral process and ensuring that we have very clear processes.
Still in the judiciary, and probably again talking about being mindful about an election, there's this ruling about candidates presenting IDs, copies, vis-a-vis the signatures and the signatures of, their supporters. There's a regulation by IEBC passed in Parliament. The judiciary at some point even interprets it, says it's okay. Then I think last week orders are issued that could actually, in one way or another, jolt these elections.
Yes. It's very tricky, and we had to work overnight to be able to produce the 48,000 IDs and copies and all this. And that exercise was, it was not easy. It was very difficult. And still a lot of, you remember we had about 51 candidates who are looking forward to being at presidential level. And so many of them did not qualify because of just that particular aspect. And they went to court. A number of them have gone to court. Today I was actually with one of them, and they were telling us that maybe they could be in the ballot sooner than later. Well, it is important that every Kenyan is given a hearing, and it's it is their constitutional right to get a good hearing and to be given equal opportunities without favor or otherwise. So we hope that the legal processes will actually act as they are supposed to be. That the rule of law, the rule of law is applied at every level and every stage of this process. If actually that was not constitutional, then it was not constitutional. Then what do we do? Then the process of how do we accommodate these people? How do we do this? And that's what we are saying, that if there was a committee that was planned, or a committee that was there, to be able to discuss with these people about, can you join other party? Can you discuss with other party? Something could be done so that the whole process is not, you're not taken back to replan again and to see that everybody is accommodated. So our position is that, if the courts ruled that it was not constitutional, every Kenyan has a right, and we are giving Kenyans at this space an opportunity to vote the right leaders, an opportunity to see the right at the end of the day. But us as at Ghana, actually, we worked so hard to be able to get those
to get the signatures and the
signatures.
Of the IDs.
I remember I could not sleep for 3 days because this was really, really tedious. Yes.
Do you think the judiciary could have done better, particularly on this one, owing to the fact that there are election timelines? The issue of signatures and IDs has already been overtaken by events because the IBC has cleared 4 candidates. Do you think, even as the judiciary tried to deal with this matter judiciously and within the parameters of justice, that it probably could have said, this will apply in the other election, but this one has already been overtaken by events? Because where we are right now, there's a serious threat to this election happening on the 9th of August if this suit continues as it is.
Yeah, and that is something that, of course, by the justice not, by the judge not being comprehensive in the ruling, you invite more problems. You invite another court case. You invite another litigation, because IBC will argue, like you've rightly said, well, that is ipso facto. It has happened after the fact. We have already moved on, and the electoral calendar is being worn down in terms of the number of days which are remaining to the elections. We have to print ballot papers these ballot papers, we expect a number and names to be on it. So when the minute you say you're going to have another 30 more people coming through, you're changing everything. The costs are going to also escalate. So everything changes. So I think what they need to be, that's what I was talking about in terms of clarity, so that when they are making decisions, they also look at the landscape. They would have advised the country better. The ruling would have advised the country better if it was a ruling which went on to explain when to look at the reality of the context and be able to say, this is where we are and this is what has happened. We can have this, like you said, in the next elections. If not, then it should come again with some ruling which says, okay, because of this, then perhaps we need an advisory from the Supreme Court in terms of, because there are these individuals who come in and we do not want to disenfranchise them, do we want to seek then an advisory from the Supreme Court to vary the date of the elections so that we can be able to accommodate them? That can still be done. However, we need a clear, direction which is being given, or guidance that takes IBC towards that thinking. Because as things stand, there's a kind of a limbo, but because somebody has gone to court now to challenge IBC on the question of them not implementing this, then the IBC does not require to even go anywhere. So it's just wait for the ruling. And that is where the fear is and the risk that could then, this new case, force IBC to have an expanded list of candidates in terms of the presidency, and therefore now be forced to seek the advisory about, do we move? And that brings everybody again back to square one. Parliament has to think, the judiciary has to give an opinion, Parliament has to nearly be recalled to be able to make a decision about the same. It will be a very expensive affair. So I think we have to be realistic in terms of what we are trying to address, how we are trying to address it. But like I said, I'm a citizen observer. I don't want anybody to be disenfranchised just because there are technicalities. Those technicalities should not be the ones which are holding sway. However, let the jurisprudence, let the courts rule with fairness in terms of also the landscape, not just that is an issue. Yes, there is an issue, but address it moving forward. But let me just quickly also say this. We have also been trying to address the issue of signature collection. And I know, like she says, they had a very arduous task of collecting those signatures. But not signatures, but the IDs even especially. But we've had a problem in this country of signature collection. So even if you take away the IDs, you still need to attend to the question of, are people able to satisfy the commission or any other person that it is this individual who actually signed for me? That has been the question. As ILOG, we faulted the Okoa Kenya initiative because people are getting, even the Punguza Mizigo, we had issues in terms of how do people get those signatures. People meet in bars and small spaces and they assign university students, some young people, to be able to get all the signatures for them. Is that authenticating your aspiration in terms of getting signatures across the country? I think that's not fair. So even at that, and one of the issues we say, unless IBC, for instance, has a repository of signatures, like the way banks have. Banks have repositories of signatures. So you can be able to verify, this is Jen, this is Mule, this is... So if you don't have that, then come up with a system that affirms that you can be able to get signatures from all over the country. Maybe you can use the KIMS kits, they can be distributed all over. People can be able to use their biometrics to be able to confirm. So it becomes easy for Maore, it becomes easy for Jakoya, it becomes easy for everybody. So that people are not disenfranchised in terms of might, and power.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about media. What do you think about the IBC for the first time allowing media to have their own tally of results?
Well, I think that was very good. Personally, I would say that what they were trying to look at is another person, comparison. Whom do we compare from? Apart from just having the observers, some of the observers may have their results and all that. Can we have an institution and media that can be able to actually take that data and tally, if they can, and be able to give us that, like I'd say, maybe 5 or 10 media houses. They've got different. If they're all adding up to the same figure, then we can actually be able to say that we can be able to compare this to that. And what I think is that what they said is that you must take that particular, picture that has been put on the wall of the
polling station.
The polling station. So once the officers have declared the winner, they're supposed to put that the form on the wall or somewhere that is conspicuous, and the media houses should be able to take that. My only hope is that media houses at this point, they are going to be trustworthy enough. That's why we are saying it's time for every Kenyan to stand. It's time for every institution to stand up to be counted. Because corruption and all this, you must start clearing it at this particular level. Accountability, when you talk of free and fair, it is every one of us who is involved, media included, that the lists, the picture that you are going to take there and transmit to your company, to your media house, is actually the form that was posted there by the returning officer. That is my only hope, that media for this particular time stand out to be counted.
Stand out to be counted.
Yes.
And when it comes to, standing up to be counted, Mule, we have had instances in this country and even elsewhere where media has carried fake news. How do we deal with that?
Let me first have a take on what she was talking about in terms of the very momentous opportunity that we have in terms of media carrying out results, or at least disseminating the results from the different polling stations. So it's a good step, but which you need to take with a lot of caution. One of the examples which has been used in some of the engagements that we've been having of late is the example of an FM station in Ghana called Joy FM, which has been doing a very good job in Ghana. They actually went and benchmarked with CNN and came to Ghana, and they've been doing most of the work in terms of tallying, and until the commission has even accepted the work of that media house, that whatever information they actually give out is confirmed, and they give tallies even as the Commission of Ghana, the Election Commission of Ghana, is giving out. It has become an alternative source of information, and it has built that credibility over time. In Kenya, we have two problems with the media. Number one, we have trust issues generally with everybody. I mean, all of us, we have trust issues with each other. So even the media is part of that problem. And secondly, there is a question of media ownership. Most of the private media in this country is privately owned. Some of them has privately owned by people with political persuasions. And we have a problem with that setup. There's nothing which says that private media houses, like in the rest of the world, cannot be able to take political positions. They can take political positions. But because we have not nurtured Kenyans to a level where we have come to accept that if media station A says we are for Azimio, or we are for Kenya Kwanza, or we are for Agano, that in terms of the kind of information that is spewed out to the public, it has to be colored in that favor. We are yet to get to the level where we can distinguish between these two issues. We are not at the level where, they say that there is somebody who owns Aga Khan Hospital or who owns some of the private hospitals. They don't tell the doctors what to do or how to do it. In fact, if they go there with an ailment, the expectation is that they expect the doctors to do the best they can be able to do to heal them. Not so when it comes to media. So media, we expect the journalists and the people working in this media to be professionals so that they're not guided by the ownership. But I don't think it works that way. And that's where we have a problem. So that when you talk about fake news, disinformation, misinformation, even hate speech to some extent, some of them, I mean, when you were discussing the ICC, well, we're not talking about a journalist who was also involved in the process. So Rwanda, as a country, was nearly burnt down because of use of media by individuals, politicians. So we need to be very careful. Media needs to grow, and she's made a very good point that people need to stand up to be counted. If the Kenyan media wants to go to the next level, to be trusted, The way Joy FM, CNN, and others outside there have been able to do their thing, you can call your shot and say, we are going to support this. But then, over time, be very consistent in giving people, Kenyans, the correct information. Be objective. Get the official information, display it on your screens, confirm it before you go out there or on air. Don't show colored, colored coverage. We are doing, ELOG is doing media, part of it is media monitoring, and we have had a question on coverage. Who is being covered more? And it's true, as the politicians are saying, not everybody is getting equal coverage. We don't expect equal coverage from private media. We expect KBC, however, to be very fair, because these are public. And I wish actually, and this is actually a call on KBC, I wish in this discussion about giving information on the results, especially of this coming election, now that IBC seems to be granting space, this space to the media, I wish KBC was the one on the forefront of this, because I don't think very many people are subscribed.
In terms of believability, we rank top. So I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Because of the other colored nature of most of the private media ownership, this will be a very good opportunity for KBC to be able to exploit and be able to say, we will go to all these stations, we'll use our correspondences out there and to get all the information. This is your trusted source of election information, including the results now that they're going to be available. And consistently over time, even the private media, we will start trusting them. But they have to start showing us that they are getting the right information, they are consistent, they are fair in terms of the coverage.
All right. Anyway, when you talk about, these results being transmitted by media, but then also say that, of course, the law allows for the final results to be posted on the wall publicly. That means anybody who has access to the polling station can still take a photo, do whatever they want with it. So even as the media tries to cast credible results, supporters of either party could actually be trying to, say we are running fake news in one way or another. And I don't think IBC has provided clarity exactly what they want the media to do that will not be done by other actors.
Actually, when you talk about media today, we are talking about the mainstream media and also the social media. And IBC may have, I think in their thinking, they're thinking about the main media, the mainstream media. Because the mainstream media is more, is more regulated. There's a regulation process through CA, Communication Authority, and it's more trust. It has some accountability even to the people of Kenya. So when they think about, I think their thinking is about the mainstream media. Because again, the social media platform, we really have no control. And this is a platform that has been taken by everybody. Everybody, journalists, non-journalists, everybody. It's a space for everybody. And so I would not expect them to be thinking that the social media will actually, give them a read. But their hope is that the mainstream media has to, would be a guide, will be a platform that will relay results and be able to provide to Kenyans information that is up to date and truthful. Just as he has said, much of the media is owned by individuals who are in politics. The major channels are owned by people who are in politics, and most of them some of them have actually declared their political siding. But that notwithstanding, actually that has affected us as parties.
You have not been given equal opportunity?
Not at all. You see a particular party or a particular party getting 30 minutes in one way or the other. They bring this, they bring that, but all the same, the whole news is one person, is one party. After even we are not there. We are not even there. Even as much as we send them news or what, we are not yet there. So we want to tell the media, actually, they need to be sensitive to that. They need to make a nation. They need to build this nation, because by the end of it, it's our own nation. And if this nation gets good leadership, it is going to end up, developing the media space. So let us be responsible. Yeah.
Can I just want to say one point on the question of the political parties and their tally? We have Houston, we have a problem.
And I want to answer to that.
If you're going to look at let me tell you, before IBC gets their results, which they have to do meticulously, ensure there are no errors. I remember the laws are saying they have to even confirm with the physical forms. They have 7 days to give an election results, so they can work within that. But I can show you by the 4th day there will be a lot of tension. So you don't want to get to the 4th day. You have given leeway to 7 days, but you don't want to take all of it. But I can assure you, on the 2nd day, she's talked about social media. Social media will have the results. Political parties, especially those two main protagonists, because they believe they have the wherewithal, they will also have called results, mostly in their favor. Everybody will be saying I've won. Okay? So even with all this largesse that IBC has allowed in terms of media, and by the way, the idea of posting that results form on the wall is to say it is available for everybody. So you don't need to tell a political party that they need, in any case, they even have agents who are getting copies of these forms inside the results forms. And remember, the results of the polling stations are final. So those are the main results. So anybody can tally them. If you have a good enterprise across the country, then you will be able to get your results. One of the things that we have noted, however, and this is important to tell the nation, so that before the political parties run all over, is that we have seen from 2010, and we observed the 2010 referendum, 2013, 2017, the repeat elections, no party in this country has been able to post observers agents, in every polling station.
It's too expensive.
They hardly even get to a third of the polling stations. And we have the data to prove that. So unless they're going to come up with something which is very miraculous for this to get 46,633 agents. This idea of saying we are going to tally, I want to see what exactly they mean by that. But I can assure you that by the 2nd day, midday, people will be telling you we have results. So we're waiting for IBC to mess us. So we need to be very cautious about the idea of these tallies. If somebody is going to do tallying, then can they tell us their methodologies very early? If it is media houses which are going to go around the country collecting, using correspondents and other people out there, let us be very clear that we've gotten this information from these polling stations. Otherwise, like you said, the question of fake news, the question of misinformation, disinformation is going to clutter around that 2nd, 3rd day that will be so muddied and things will be so difficult to know what is going on, and everybody will be on IBC.
Let me ask a quick one. If in terms of dealing with believability and credibility of the results that the media houses will be carrying, we are jointly doing the presidential debate. We did the gubernatorial debate yesterday. Tuesday we do the deputy president debate, and finally the presidential debate. Is it possible then, can it be a more credible way if media houses unite then and bring their efforts together and tally the results?
There needs to be a method to the madness. Now you're talking about method. That's okay. So we need to get this beforehand.
Yes.
Otherwise, if you allow everybody just do the thing that as they understand it, there is also no media house which has enough correspondents across the country to be able to say we have 46,000. It must be an effort by the team. And that's why I like the fact that the Kenya Editors Guild is working as a team, saying, can we acquire this from the commission? Once granted, let's have a call center. Let's have a place where we can all sit down and say, we are getting the information, and this then is being spewed out and used. We are using the different channels, KBC, KTN, NTV, Citizen. We are all getting it from one source. It is being verified. It's being confirmed with IBC, and then now we can be able to share it with the rest of the public.
There's also these people who are doing, what do you call them? The polls before, they'd say...
Posters. Opinion polls.
Opinion polls. It's very interesting. They don't put even the name of Maure on the wrist. I'm a teacher, and it doesn't matter whatever the marks a child gets. By the end of the day, I'll give the list of all the children.
What if they got -2?
Even if it's -2, they are supposed to say, this child or this particular candidate, put the name of the candidate on your wrist and say they got -2.
You have a problem with both.
Yes, a big one.
Very quickly, I think for 2 minutes, because I only have 2 minutes to wind up. Observers, election observers.
Yeah.
What is your relationship with election observers?
Yes, my problem with election observers, they say.
You have a problem with them?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
I'm seated here.
Okay.
Yes, you're seated there. And actually, they're just concentrating on the two parties that they assume are the top.
Azimio Kenya Kwanza.
Yes, that's what they're concentrating on. They don't seek the opinion of the other parties. They have not come to us. They have not talked to us to ask us what are the challenges, what are the strengths, what are we doing, what are we seeing the landscape to be. And that is interesting because the two that are assumed to be reading actually has been there every other year. The newcomers like Agano, Maore Wahiga, is somebody who is very new in the space and has, can be able to give a very dynamic observation or, his
new
views.
In terms of what? New in terms of a presidential race or existence? Because I think he has tried before, except that he has not been cleared.
Yeah, he was not cleared, and even
this is the first time he's been cleared.
Exactly.
Okay.
So he has a lot of information that can be able to be different from the others.
Right.
So when you assume them and when you don't get their opinion, it's not right.
Good luck. Jonathan was here leading a group of observers. You're saying they didn't engage Agano?
They didn't engage Agano.
Okay.
Yes.
I
complained actually
Musa,
to
you're in the dock. I'll leave you to answer.
My quick answer is this. That, well, I cannot be able to vouch for the international observers. My expectation is that they should invite everybody. I think, remember the registration also is coming very late in the day. So now we have 4 candidates. I think all the missions which are coming, they need to ask those 4 candidates to come over and talk to them. In terms of ELOG as domestic observers, we have been able to, I talked about media coverage. We are now working with the 4 main parties now which are running for elections in terms of amount of coverage. I can give you data on Agano, I can give you on our Jakoya, on the basis of the observation that we are seeing now from a month from since you are cleared by IBC. So we are focusing on all the actors.
So you have not denied any opportunity?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
At least now you've gotten an answer?
At least.
Okay.
I'll see him after this.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Jane. And thank you very much, Mr.
I want to just invite Kenyans and tell them that, so much of our time, we've always been relying on candidates coming to the ground or whatever you hear. This particular time, IEBC has given us 4 candidates. 4 candidates, and we are at a time whereby social media is with everybody. You have internet, you have access to your phones and all the same. Kenyans, let's do our homework. Let us check the credibility of each and every candidate, especially the presidential candidate. Let us look at them, let's check on them. Let's not say that the candidate has not come. As a Ghana, we may not come to your place because we don't have the muscles that the others have, because we are the clean broom.
Okay.
We are new and clean broom. Let's read and study about Maore Wahiga. Search him, study him, look at him, and see actually he's the candidate.
You're about to turn this into a campaign platform.
Thank you.
To be fair, 20 seconds of your last Musa.
Mine is very simple. Mine is, as I said, I started by saying that the elections belong to Kenyans. I think all of us, whether they are politicians, the judiciary, IBC, the voters themselves, observers, media, let's all work in concert to make elections successful. We don't need to blame IBC for anything. It is our election. Let us work together to ensure we have a successful elections.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And this is where we put a cap on Kenya Decides, quite an incisive conversation on the preparedness of the IEBC as regards the election that is about 27 days away. There was an invite for Francis, who is the commissioner of the IEBC. He didn't make it. Obviously, there appears like there were some late night meetings, and you would excuse them in a way or another because they have to prepare for this election. But thank you very much for your feedback. Thank you very much for watching. God bless you. Have yourself a fantastic night. We're live from the Norfolk Fairmont Hotel.
We shall legalize weed.
Professor George Luchiri Wajakoya of the Roots Party.
Semeni Babakea. Babakea.
Raila Amolo Odinga of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Party.
Unajua mimi sina pesa ya serikali ama ya kashfa.